fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. I'm going to have 2 episodes. I'm going to have one today, and I'll have one tomorrow. All right, so the one tomorrow is going to be very long. It's going to be me. And I'm going to have a lot of stuff to cover, and so you don't want to miss that. Today, I've got the Wolf, James Henry. He's going to be on. I'm going to talk to you about the TA, what to expect next. It was quite a good conversation we had. I always love having the Wolf, James Henry, on. And so that will be today's episode, all right? Again, I'll have another one tomorrow. Thank you to Mallory and Cole, who spent about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes with me today trying to get my computer fixed because I suck. And so you're listening to me today because of Mallory and Cole. And you will listen to me tomorrow because of Mallory and Cole. And I can't thank them enough to always taking time. I know it drives them nuts, but taking time out of their day to help me because I'm incompetent. All right. And so thank you to them. Mallory also, they came down about a couple of weeks ago and helped me with my email because my Titan email, for some reason, I wasn't getting it. And so she helped me with that, put it on this laptop, and about 500 emails came in. And so I've been answering those. Those are down about 200. So if you get an email from me, a response where you sent me an email 2 years ago, just know it's because Mallory fixed my Titan email. That's the From 8 Arbitration email, and about 500 came in. So I'm dealing with those, as well as Facebook Messenger. I got about 200 of those, and so I'm answering them as I can, and so be patient. If you have sent me discipline to look at and it's 2 years old, what you're going to get from me is a, hey, how did that turn out? Because I missed it. I hate missing emails, especially when we're dealing with discipline and you've asked for help, because I try to help anybody who sends me any discipline, try to beat that discipline because I hate management, right? So you're going to hear from the man himself, the apex predator, the Wolf, James Henry. You're going to hear from him today. And like I said, I'll be back on tomorrow with a very long episode. I'm going to talk about San Angelo, Texas, where I went down and spoke at a retirement dinner there. I'm going to talk about that and talk about some 16.7 stuff where headquarters has sent out that mandate to put us on 16.7. Have somebody that's completely in their ass. And I'm going to talk to y'all about that because it's hysterical. And it's how we should all be. And we'll talk about that. And I've got a few other things that I'm going to address. I've got some numbers on some grievance payouts. I'm going to talk about that. So it's going to be the ultimate salted peanuts. A lot of stuff going on, okay? And so James and I have a very good conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy it. He's going to be a fantastic president, something we've missed for a while. The man's integrity is out the roof. And I've always said, first and foremost, what we need at this moment is integrity. We need that at this moment more than any other time in our history of the NALC. We need somebody to come in there with integrity, and that will be James Henry. We have no integrity in our office right now, and it's showing, and it's an embarrassment, and it's causing us great issues. And so we talk a little bit about that. But here you go, the Wolf, the apex predator, James Henry. Y'all enjoy. I'll see y'all tomorrow with my episode, all right? I love you. Have a good Monday tomorrow, okay? Bye. All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. I got the man himself on, the Wolf, James Henry. And he's coming on. He's going to talk to y'all. One of these days, I'm going to tell y'all why he's the Wolf. And everybody always says, where'd the wolf come from? And I'm going to tell y'all why James Henry is the Wolf, the apex predator. All right, so I've got the Wolf on, Mr. James Henry, the next president of the NALC. I'm going to talk a little bit about the TA and things like that. And so, Mr. Henry, you there?
I am, brother. How you doing, Corey? Good to be back,
Doing well, sir. Doing well. You've been busy.
man. I, I have been busier than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest.
Well, did you win?
Man, always, always.
All right, my brother. It's all yours, baby. Just let them have it.
Well, first of all, hello, everybody. I'm glad to be back and be able to have an opportunity to speak with you guys again. You know, it is important that this moment in time is acknowledged. Everyone had been on high anticipation about the proposed tentative agreement and what the results of that agreement would be. And just for the purposes of putting it in perspective, there was 90,040 votes or ballots that were received, and 63,680 rejected the tentative proposed agreement, and 26,304 were in favor. Now, what does that say? If it doesn't say anything, is that there was an absolute clear majority, that the membership spoke loud and clear. And it is inherent and it is our obligation, those of us that are in leadership position, to listen to what the membership has to say. And in this instance, the membership, you guys that are out there, each rank and file member, are saying that what was presented to us by no stretch of the imagination was acceptable. It was not acceptable to present us with a tentative agreement that did not contain a full career or all career workforce. Stated that there was not acceptable to have us working all these inordinate amount of hours when we have a national agreement that said it was absolute. We shouldn't have to compensate our wages by working an inordinate amount of hours and sacrificing time with our family. We should not have a tentative agreement or proposed agreement that does not reflect the worth of our carrier's labor. I know a lot of people say, well, what is the number or what is the dollar amount that the letter carriers should get paid? You hear bandied around $30, $40, $50. Myself, I say, whatever that labor is worth. That could be $70. And, I use as an analogy, Brother Corey, I mean, you could take a diamond and they may look similar, but when you start factoring in the clarity and the flawlessness of a particular diamond, it increases its value that much more. And even to the naked eye, they may look the same, but they're not. So what am I saying here is that you may have the letter carriers and you have UPS drivers and FedEx drivers, and to the naked eye, to the layperson out on the streets, they may say, well, they all are delivery personnel. They all should basically get the same. But I'm telling you here is that, as I've stated before, is that letter carriers deserve to be the industry leaders in the wages, benefits, and working conditions. So our labor is what determines what our worth is. And if we're saying that it's important for us to get what's comparable to us, I'm stating that we should get what's in excess or exceeds what is already out there, because there is no other industry that has the same mandates on their workforce, particularly the letter carrier, than we do. UPS, they don't have to go out there when the Hurricane Katrina or any other hurricanes have come and wiped out the entire neighborhoods or cities. Same thing with these fires out there in California. When you're talking about individuals that, as I was off in Minneapolis and Milwaukee the other day, that are having to go out and walk in 3 feet deep snow or even more, even other areas of the country, whether you're in Buffalo, Pennsylvania, wherever the case may be, the bottom line is that we have a mandate that are unlike any other of delivery organizations. And our labor is worth more, in my view, than any of that. We need to make sure that we have a contract that is consistent with what our level of devotion and dedication has been to this country and has been to the United States Postal Service. Now, I can tell you here, this tentative agreement that was rejected resoundingly, when you're talking about 63,680 letter carriers that rejected that, that is something that, if you think about it, brother, is mind-boggling. When you're talking about the general officer election that occurred for the NALC, that only 15%, give or take, of the membership voted, and here you have approximately close to 50% of the membership that came out. That tells you that these letter carriers are tired of not being treated the way that they should be treated, being taken for granted. When we're talking about making sure that not only we have an economic package that's reflective of our labor, the worth of our labor, but making sure that the work rules and that our work environment is such that we can come to work and spend more time doing our job than trying to keep our job. We heard about how people are out there issuing our letter carriers 16-7s, emergency placements, placing them off work for matters that do not fall within the confines or the criteria of an emergency placement. Now, the Postal Service know that they would lose that, but they continue to do it anyway. It's because it's a matter of forcing them, meaning forcing our letter carriers to conduct themselves in a manner that will be detrimental to their health, out there running and skipping their breaks, but on the same hand, doing these street observations. And if they catch you doing something that they basically have put you in a position to do, then they want to discipline you. Those things are something that should not occur. And I tell you, my brother, I was really happy to see that the number of letter carriers that voted in this tentative agreement, that it was astronomical. It truly was. When you're talking about 90,000 letter carriers sent in ballots, I want to first say thank you to every letter carrier that took the time to vote it, that was engaged, that exercised their vote here. It doesn't matter in this instance whether or not you voted for or against. What matters here is that the letter carrier spoke, and it's time for us to rally around the overwhelming majority of the NALC members that says that we deserve better, we demand better. And this notion of letter carriers that disagree with one another or disagree with the side that one side may take or the other, whether you are in favor of rejecting it or you were in favor of accepting the tentative agreement, we need to keep in mind that our fight should not be with one another. Our fight is with the Postal Service. Our fight is to make sure that each and every one of us get a fair and livable living wage contract, that the work rules in our work environment is reflective of a harmonious work environment, that we can come to work and go back to work at each day with a peace of mind of knowing that if I do my job, that I can get from hire date to retirement date. And like I said, and there's no place else that you seem to find as seemingly has been as prevalent in most recent times of if you disagree and you exercise your God-given right, your contractual right, your constitutional or NALC constitutional right to exercise your right to vote, to speak your mind, that somehow you're vilified for doing so. That is just the most asinine position that I could ever think of. If we're not able, and every letter carrier is not able to speak up and have their own say, then what's the point? How can we then call ourselves a democratic organization? How is it that we can call ourselves a democratic organization? Because everyone is entitled to a vote. And if we're not willing and able to stand up and fight for what it is that we believe in, then we shouldn't call ourselves a union. We should just fold our tents and go on about our business. What's the purpose of the union? If you're not going to stand up and fight for workers' rights and fight for what you believe in. And I know that there are still some that are hesitant and worried about what may come next. What if we do go to arbitration? What if we do end up not getting what was offered to us? What if we don't get anything at all? Well, anything is possible. I don't think that that's probable. But the bottom line is that if this country, speaking from a military perspective, was invaded, we don't not fight because we say that's an overwhelming force that's over there, that they have more soldiers than we have. They have greater and more technologically advanced weapons than we do. We have to stand and fight. And we as an organization and we as leaders should be encouraging each and every letter carrier to stand up for what they believe in, that your voice, your vote matters. It doesn't have to coincide with what I believe should occur. What should matter is that I believe that you have the right to exercise your right, to cast your vote. Now, you have those that say, well, now that the tentative proposed agreement has been rejected, what occurs next? I'm going to read to you what the Constitution says. The NALC Constitution says, when the majority of total votes cast is for rejection, the NALC negotiators shall inform the United States Postal Service and reopen negotiations within 5 days after the vote is tallied. If negotiations are not reopened, the NALC negotiators shall determine if there will be binding arbitration, an immediate work stoppage, or a designated job action. If negotiations are reopened, they will not exceed a period of 15 calendar days, at which time a second ballot shall be mailed to each member for ratification or rejection. If the membership rejects this second ballot, then the national president will determine if there will be binding arbitration, an immediate work stoppage, or a designated job action. An agreement entered into between the NALC and the USPS shall be ratified by the regular members who shall be non-supervisory employees in the Postal Service. Now, what has occurred since the vote has occurred and they have been tallied? The national president has been informed, as everyone knows, and he's notified the membership, and the Postal Services have been notified within these 5 days. Come Monday, at an executive board meeting, he's informed us that come Monday that the Postal Service has agreed to reopen negotiations. So that is the path that's going to be happening. And they're going to start negotiating again come this Monday. And as it's stated here in the NALC Constitution, shall not exceed 15 calendar days. Also, he indicated that they will also be seeking dates from the arbitrator, in event that there is no agreed to agreement from this point forward. But as it indicated here, if there was something that they felt that was worthy to send back out to the membership, then here it would come to a situation where they will mail ballots again per the NALC Constitution and would again voted up or down. Now, my thing is here, it is important that everyone know that we all benefit here. Now, it is unfortunate that we've spent all this amount of time, whatever, 600 days or more, regarding trying to get a collective bargaining agreement. But the right thing, in my view, is to make sure that letter carriers feel good and are comfortable with what they believe represents their worth. and they should be confident in us, meaning the leaders, that we're representing their interests. I am of the firm believer and of the opinion that in this instance here, this most recent time, it's no secret. President Renfroe stated that he exclusively or solely did the negotiating. Now, I'm of the opinion, particularly this go around, that other officers should be involved, that resident officers and the executive board should be included in these negotiations. We'll see what happens, but I think that that should occur. And I think that regular updates to the membership should occur as well. You know, it's been a lot of to do about the transparency. I think that our membership is entitled to know where we stand. I've stated before is that people wondered, why did I get up and say that I thought that a no vote was warranted in this particular instance? And some say I've seen written articles, I've seen individuals post stuff talking about, well, these officers, you know, have some agenda. Let me make it unequivocally clear to you. I have no agenda. And other people and other officers that I know that felt the same way, the only agenda that we have is ensuring that letter carriers' interest is represented. That's what the only agenda that we have, is ensuring that letter carriers' interest is represented. And there is by no stretch of imagination that you can spin, flip it, rub it down, massage it, and make this vote turn out, the disparity in the acceptance versus the rejection, make it anything than what it is. And that is a not just a no, but a heck no, with an exclamation point behind it, with 2 dots under it. The fact of the matter is that our letter carriers depend on us, brother. You've heard me say that the best ability is dependability. One thing is here is that there is no shortage of talent at the NALC headquarters and at the local level. What people, they don't dispute that. What is in question, gets called into question frequently is, are you working for me? Do you have my back like vertebrae? That's what's called into question. And I can tell you without 1 ounce of hesitation is that if you are a letter carrier, myself, others like myself out there are looking out for you. And I say that for the purposes that I don't want anybody to lose faith in their union. We are part of the NALC, the National Association of Letter Carriers. We are all part of the NALC. And I am not rooting for the failure, didn't root for the failure of negotiations this time. I just offer my opinion that what was presented to us was devoid of our worthiness, of the letter carriers being taken care of to the extent that they should be taken care of. There are representatives, yourself, myself, and others, and there's some there at headquarters, but I'm not here to be divisive. The CLC is not here to be divisive. There are times that the National Association of Letter Carriers, when you said that, it sent shockwaves through the management ranks when they heard that an NALC representative was coming. This is why when I came on in 1988, that clerks, mail handlers was leaving in droves to become members and join the letter carrier craft, because they knew that we stood up and showed up on their behalf each and every day. They knew that they would get a collective bargaining agreement that made their job and their efforts each day worth coming to work. And those are the things that are being called into question. So right now, what I'm asking each and every one of the letter carriers out there is for us to unify and make sure that we get a fair contract, a contract that is worthy of our labor, a contract that will make sure that our work environment is such that the idea of a CA2 would be unheard of. Because I tell you, they need to know that, one, there are those that really, 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 really care. And the CLC has somehow, some people like to say that we are, like I said, divisive. Well, the CLC, concerned letter carriers, is by the letter carriers, of the letter carriers, and for the letter carriers. That's what we are. And each and every one of us should be on one accord when it comes to that. There was no need prior to seemingly the most recent times to have all these different organizations such as the BFN and the CLC and any other organization that's feeling that they need to take some affirmative and some aggressive action in getting this car back to the center of the road, making sure that our letter carriers are our first and foremost and only priority. And so again, and again, I said that we need to make sure that whatever it is that is going to happen from this particular point on, these next 15 days, that we are standing shoulder to shoulder, that we are being unified, and that we not fight with one another. Our fight is not with one another. Our fight is with and for the letter carriers. Full stop.
James, I've always said, and I say this still, that the problem wasn't the TA. The TA is a result of the problem. That problem is Renfroe. And that I've always said that he wasn't on the floor long enough. He doesn't understand us, and the things that he signs are indicative of that. And then this TA, even, you have these things, the non-pay package type stuff, the 12 and 60 hour caps, all these different quarterly overtime things that are going to lead to about 4 or 5 different quarterly overtime grievances. You have the reduction in the fixed office time, one of the silliest things I can think of. Those things to me are a result of Renfroe not knowing us and not understanding us, and kind of those things were concessions to me. I want to ask you if you've heard this and if you want to talk about it. If you don't have to. But somebody sent me this the other day. He says, "Hey, brother, I know you're not feeling good. Just wanted to let you know that we have had people at branch officers training where Barner was saying that they plan to agree to the workplace issues and are only going to into negotiations for pay, but they plan to fight like hell." So they're agreeing to all these things that are not in the pay package. And I've also heard people say that Renfroe is telling them the same thing, that all of these things that were in the TA that were not in the pay package, they're going to go ahead and agree to those things before they send the pay package to arbitration. Are you hearing anything like that?
Well, I've heard that through like kind of like the sources that you're talking about, but
Yeah.
not directly from Brian Renfroe or so. What I do believe is that whatever is presented should be consistent with what the convention resolutions were. That's what the membership voted on, right? In regards to those things. And what is important to keep in mind is that the membership rejected the entire tentative proposed agreement.
Yes.
That they rejected the whole thing. And so how that is interpreted by those that are going to be negotiating here come tomorrow, I don't know. In my view, I think that since the whole proposed tentative agreement was rejected, that anything, whether or not it's work rules or economic package, anything that was agreed upon or thought about being agreed upon should be sent out again to the membership to vote up or vote down. That's my view. All right. And it's not that's not something that I think we should maybe go down that path of again being clever, with trying to meet a happy medium. There is no, there is give and take in contract negotiation or negotiations. I get that. But we should have our bottom line. We should know what it is that our membership, and so when the membership rejected the TA by this number here, almost 71% versus 29%, I don't care what was presented, if it was based on the economics or based on the work rules, it doesn't matter. That is overwhelmingly a rejection to it all.
Yeah.
And so everything, in my view, should be back on the table. And there should be nothing that is negotiated without in my view, the officers now being involved or the approval of the executive council. You have that old adage, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we do the same thing again and expect a different result? You have to adjust and adapt to your circumstances. And the circumstances are here is that letter carriers are tired of being taken for granted. Letter carriers expect more out of their leadership. There is no two ways about that, brother. It's just not. And, and sometimes, this is one of those things, often hear me use analogies with my faith and stuff here, about when Noah was talking about, it's going to rain, it's going to rain, it's going to rain. And then the flood come and they're like, let me in. We're like, well, now, we are saying we want to do all these kind of things. We kept saying that this is not worthy of our letter carrier crowd. Now, guess what? There's been placed on to announce that we're supposed to have a National Day of Action or something to that effect, in Washington, D.C. I tell you what, I highly encourage every letter carrier, the CLC, BFN, or whoever you are associating yourself within the NALC, because at the root of it, we are all NALC members, that we should participate, because this is clearly in our interest, the letter carrier interest. This is not about one getting a feather in their hat over the other. So whenever this action in Washington, D.C. that was announced on the NALC website, whenever that occurred, I would encourage that everybody that can participate, do participate and do come. It is important that we stick together, because this is where we at right now. Again, we all are entitled to one vote, and it's not divisive because you disagree. That is not what makes something divisive. No one has been a dissenter just for the sake of dissenting. When you have core beliefs and you believe in certain things, then, and you're a democratic union like we are, everyone should have their say. And so we should continue to unify. We should continue to not fight, no longer, I should say, fight amongst ourselves, because our fight is with the Postal Service. That's who our fight is with. And we should be fighting to make sure, or continue to fight to make sure that the leadership hears exactly what we are saying.
Well, I'm sure at this day of action, they're going to have a podium with a microphone or 3 or 4. Don't you think that that'd probably be the case where people can get up there and speak?
Yes.
James, if you're the president and you've got Corey over here, and from day one, he's been telling you and telling the public and telling all the carriers that this tentative agreement was a good thing and that we can't do any better. If looking at it, we just can't do any better if we go to arbitration, and that we've gotten every penny that we could out of the Postal Service. We've been talking for 600 days, and we've gotten every penny that we could out of the Postal Service, and that the reason we can't do any better is because the Postal Service is losing billions. Would you want me to get up there and speak at that rally if that was my mindset? And we're trying to persuade the public about the plight of the city letter carrier. Would you want me to be one of your guest speakers if that was my attitude?
No.
Then why in the hell would we let Brian Renfroe get up to the podium if that's been his mindset and what he's been preaching for the last however many months?
Well, the simple and direct answer to that is here, whether we like it or not, is that the Constitution gives him that right.
Well, I don't like it.
You
You see
know,
what I'm saying? I mean, how silly. Listen, hey, James, do me a favor, brother. When you win, okay, don't make a rookie mistake by coming up with a tentative agreement and saying this is the best we could do. They're losing billions. I've gotten every penny out of them. Don't do that. Here's what we do. We say, here's the tentative agreement that both parties have come up with. I'm going to present this to you, the city letter carrier. Look at it. Look at it and determine, is this best for y'all? And if not, send it back to me. Do that. Why would you come out immediately talking about they've lost billions? First off, James, don't lie. Don't say all these things that you're going to do, like these 9%. 9%. Remember, I read that the other day.
yeah.
This 9% is going to be the starting point. We're not going to go below 9%. And all career workforces are non-starter. But if we do keep CCAs, they're going to come in with a substantial raise. Now, I know how you feel about CCAs. You've leaned up into the camera here when I started talking about CCAs. And so back up off of me, brother. I didn't say it.
Yeah.
You look like you're trying to come through the screen at me. But, substantial raise and then give us this load of shit. Of course, I know that you have integrity and you would never do that. It's just mind-boggling to me that we're fixing to have a guy stand up at a podium at a day of action who is fixing to contradict everything that he's ever said about the TA that was just shot down.
Well, let me tell you this here. There are a lot of qualities and characteristics that apply to so many different people. But when it comes to leadership, the first and foremost, I think, quality or characteristic that should abide in any leader is one, trustworthiness. And then second, judgment. People make decisions all day, every day, but did you exercise sound judgment? Are you trustworthy? Because if you're not trustworthy, then you're not going to be an effective leader at all, period. And the one thing that you can depend on me, particularly anyone that's been around me any period of time, one thing that will always happen is that I'll always tell you the truth. You know, I despise anyone that tries to pee on your head and convince you it's rain. And that what you described is what it appeared to me. You know, here's the deal, is that there are some things that I said that are just worth fighting for. And when you're in a leadership position, you know, no man should be left behind. That's a Marine Corps military. No. I mean, you just don't leave anybody behind. And you don't, and I characterize some of that when you're talking about the CCAs, people being left behind. Say, they do not do an abbreviated job of what we do. They do the exact same job every day. They carry the same mail. They get the same harassments on the workroom floor. They don't pay prorated dues, but yet they're treated like second-class citizens. They are NLC members just like you and I, and they should be treated that way. Like I said to you early, trustworthiness. Our membership, or anyone that's in a position of leadership, the people that you are leading or have an obligation and responsibility for should be able to trust you. And like I was telling you earlier, that's the most unsettling part with me here, is that the NLC leadership has been called into question because of trustworthiness, which has a direct or indirect effect on the membership on the workroom floor, because the leaders there are parakeeting or relaying what they're being told. So when they're being told something that turns out to not be true, or at least doesn't manifest itself, it's not just the NLC leadership at Indiana, 100 Indiana Northwest Avenue. It becomes that local president on the floor. It becomes that NBA, because they've been towing the line, been saying the same thing that they've been told. So now all the leadership look like it's lying. And the membership loses its trust in the leadership. Now, the thing is that you cannot be, as I stated before, you want to be a leader, you can't be in a leadership position trying to please everybody. If you want to please everybody, go sell ice cream, right? The fact of the matter is that you have an obligation and you have a duty. So trying to please those individuals over there at LaFlante Plaza is, one, the least of your concerns. And they say, well, you can cooperate, but we don't capitulate, brother. We don't give in. You just don't. You can be reasonable. I understand all too well. You're talking about a rookie mistake. Man, I've been doing this here come February 22nd. I have 37 years in the Postal Service. And of those 37 years, 36 and a half of them has been representing letter carriers. And despite the stuff that I've had to go through over the last year and a half, some of it that rises completely to the level of just utter disrespect, in my view, I've not lost sight of what my responsibility is. I've told people a lot of times, I've had managers down when I was at the regional office trying to recruit me into the area management. I had, when I was officer on, just a regular officer at branch 1100, asking me to come into labor relations. And without a doubt, every single time, I told him, you know what? Almost verbatim, every single one of them, I'm a lost cause. Say, you know what? Because I genuinely believe that I've been called to do what I do. All right? I understand everybody doesn't have or necessarily is a person of faith, but because of what has transpired in my life, it rooted in me convictions that I was called to do what I do. And so I take it very seriously. And I expect any and everybody, that any of my colleagues, to take your job seriously. And if you don't, like I said, if you're trying to please somebody all the time, especially management, go sell ice cream. That you can please whoever you want, do that. But the fact of the matter is that we as NALC representatives, must make sure that we don't get the Stockholm syndrome. You know, that we certainly do not become over sympathetic for those on the other side. Doesn't mean that you have to be, rude. Doesn't mean that you have to be, a butthole and all of those other things. But it means that you got to stay focused. Means that you got to stay committed. And when you are able to go and meet with letter carriers, the one thing that even if we don't, because it's been brought to my attention since, say, well, James, you out here telling people that they should vote no. I'm saying that I am going to vote no, and here's the reasons why. And I think that you should vote because I think you would be voting against your interest. But that's your decision to make based on the information that you have here. They say, well, what are you going to do if the arbitration comes back and you don't get anything? Well, guess what? That, in my view, is no different than me saying, that's like me saying I'm not going to, if I was active duty military or even in reserves and I got called up and I had to go to war and I say, well, I'm not going to go. I'm going to desert because I'm afraid of dying. Well, when I signed up to be in the armed forces, I knew that there was a chance that I would get called up and I would have to go to war. And if I had to go to war and I had to fight and it cost me my life like it has with untold millions, then that is one of the things that comes with it. But you do it because there should be something that's larger than yourself. And I tell you, at least my experience seems that, at least in the latter part of my career, it seems like it's more concerned about preservation of your job than your commitment and duty of doing your job, of representing these letter carriers. So, I'm one that goes down with the ship. If we put up the fight and we didn't, I can't have moral authority to tell people, keep up the good fight, because there's going to come a time when I'm going to ride off into the sunset. But hopefully we continue to have other leaders, NALC representatives that understand the importance of making sure that letter carriers' voices are heard and acted upon, that letter carriers' interests are represented. I tell you, man, when you're talking about, some people were saying like this proposed tentative agreement, there was a whole lot of things with regarding not only the work issues that you had, work rules that you had pointed out. I mean, even if you're talking about the economic package, there are some that said, well, hey, they were just holding out because they want to get some back pay. They think, oh, I'm getting 2 years of back pay, all of this stuff. And it may not have manifested itself in the way that they thought that it was going to manifest itself. But when you have a collective bargaining agreement that is based on, or an economic package that's predominantly based on projected amounts and not amounts that are negotiated, that are guaranteed, like your general wage increases. And then from the tentative agreement period time was from May of 23 to November of 26, but there was no general wage increase outlined in there from May of 23 to November. And then the last general wage increase was in November of 25, I believe. And there was no general wage increase that was outlined or agreed upon for the entire year of 26. You would be relying exclusively on COLAs. How is that a fair economic package when we already behind and we continue to fall further and further behind? But that is something that we don't have to concern ourselves a whole lot with anymore because the membership overwhelmingly rejected the proposed tentative agreement. Now what we must do is the second part is ensure that those that are negotiating go in and literally, like you're saying, get everything that we can for our letter carriers. That that we put forth an arbitration case that demonstrates in words and in deeds that we're worthy, that our labor is worthy of more than just 1.3 and perhaps COLAs. All of that is fine and well, but I think that we can do better. And whether or not it ends up being that way, it still was worth the fight. So like I say, it doesn't matter whether or not if you're in war, it matters if you win, but you still need to fight. You still need to put your all on the sacrifice, on the altar of sacrifice. And as I was stating over there in Minneapolis and Milwaukee the other day, has letter carriers placed their all on the altar of sacrifice? Ask those carriers that are there in California who house burnt down, their relatives' houses burned down, and they get up, dress up, and show up to work still. Ask those carriers that are over in areas that have other calamities such as hurricanes and they lose everything, that still get up, dress up, and show up to work. Those that are having to deal with all these extreme weather phenomenons, whether or not it's extreme heat or extreme cold, that are getting up, dressing up, and showing up to work every day. Every day. And you're going to tell me that you're going to reward that with 1.3%? You're going to reward that by issuing them unwarranted discipline? You're going to reward that by not providing them an harmonious work environment? You're going to reward that by trying to make them do 10 hours of work for 8 hours worth of pay? By taking away office time and all those other different things? No. Like I said, not just no, but heck no. And as long as I am still with the letter carriers and representing them, I will always make my voice heard. And I will always make sure that letter carriers know that they can make their voice heard and that somebody is listening to them. Because like I said, we are part of this fight is by, for, and of the letter carriers.
Well, I always said, James, fighters want to fight. Fighters, they train to fight. They want to fight. You have people, what happens, we vote this down and we go to arbitration and lose. At least we fought. At least we fought. The perfect example is, people are probably tired of hearing me talk about this, but the stationary event we had in Nashville when my business agent withdrew it. I said, don't withdraw it. Let me go fight and at least lose it. But let me fight. That's all we want. The city letter carriers, and that's my last episode, I said, we picked a fight. That's what that vote was. 71%, we picked a fight. Because the letter carriers want to fight. They're in a fighting mood. And they've been in one since that TA came out. If Renfroe agrees to part of that TA after it was so resoundingly defeated, if he agrees to part of that behind our backs and just sends up that financial package, they should run him out of town. We try to get him out of town in Boston, and the executive council came to his defense. But I'm telling you, with the 71% ass whipping, and if he tries to go behind our backs and settles that or agrees to that non-financial package bullshit that he put in there, brother, it's going to be hell to pay.
Well, and this is why I am of the belief that this go around here, is that the officers should be included. The executive board should be involved, and that we should make sure that everything that we ask for is placed on the table. And win, lose, or draw, we, like you said, we put up the fight. The fact of the matter is, and it's not a situation of just mindlessly fighting or fighting just for the sake of fighting. We have righteous indignation at this point, brother. We have righteous indignation. Carriers have a right to be PO'd. They have a right to be upset and be angry about everything that's been going on, And when you're talking about them having to exercise a little bit more patience to see what's going to happen, that just adds to the frustration. And to some degree, it's a making of our own doing. But I tell you what, is that we need to continue to pray for our leadership. We need to continue to pray that everything that we have said takes some type of seed, and that these numbers here have an impact on those that are going to be assigned and responsible for negotiating over these next 15 days and possibly taking it into arbitration. We need to rally around our cause and everybody unify and consent and not fight one another, but fight for the cause, period.
Well, I was proud of my people, my family, light blue. I couldn't have been more proud when that vote came down. And the main reason why, the TA to me was shit, and everybody knows how I felt about it. We deserve more. For 600 days, they tried to starve us out, knowing what they were fixing to hand us to try to eat. Knowing for 600 days now. This could have been done within the first 10 days, this TA. I mean, that's how bad it was. This is like the initial proposal when you walked in on the first day and they slide it across to you and say, here's what we're offering. That was the initial one. And 600 days later, Renfroe's like, you know what, let's go back to that. I'm going to take it to my members. For 600 days, they starved the letter carrier out. And when you starve somebody for so long, they get desperate. And that back pay may be 2,000 and it'll look like 2 million because you starved them for so long. And that 1.3, man, that don't taste too bad now. Initially it tasted like a shit sandwich, but it don't taste too bad now because it's been 600 days. I might can digest that, with some cold drink. 600 days later, things that you wouldn't eat before, you may take a sample of. And the city letter carrier told them to go fuck off. And that's what they said. We'll stay hungry. We deserve better than the soup line. And I couldn't have been more proud when that vote came in, because that's exactly what the letter carrier said, is that we're not going to sit here and eat soup this entire time, and then you hand us soup. We're wanting steak, and that's what we're going to fight for. You've left us in the soup line for 600 days, and 600 days later said, hey, look here what I got for you, some more soup. And that's basically what it was. Well, hell, we've been eating soup. We'll just keep eating this shit until you fight for steak. Now, whether we get steak, I don't know.
It wasn't even chicken noodle, brother. It wasn't chicken noodle. It wasn't beef stew. It was
no stock in it.
Poor man soup with a rock in it, right?
Yeah. Just roll that hot rock around in there. But that's the reason I was so proud of them, James, is that they tried to starve us out. No doubt in my mind, this thing was done months and months ago. When it came out, everybody said the same thing. This was the first proposal. This was first week that y'all sat down. It was just nothing in it benefited the city letter carrier. And the city letter carrier said, And you know you can say hell no on here, James. You keep saying heck. I'll say I'll say it for you. The
All right, you
letter
can say
carrier
it
just
for me.
didn't say they didn't just say no. They said hell no to this TA, and that was why I was so proud, man. Man, you tried to starve my people out, and we said, hey, bring it, bring it, bring it, baby. Uh, we're fighting, and this letter, like I said, the letter carrier picked a fight, man. But it was so sweet to see that.
Well, my grandmother used to say, "What don't come out in the wash comes out in the rinse." And
Hmm.
we didn't know what was going to go happen here as this was going all the way, but it came out here exactly what when we were going through the fight. We didn't know for a fact how carriers were going to do. We could only surmise, but it came out here as to what really and how our letter carriers really feel about this. Like I said, this is just, and no pun intended, truly, this is what's truly historic. This is what's historic. And the fact of the matter is that letter carriers used to have um, an enormous amount of respect. All of us that's been around any period of time would talk about how it was a highly desirable job for the stability. You would go apply for the post office, and it would take you sometime years to get on. You know, it would take you a while, and that's because of the demand for the job. And once you got in, I mean, I know people, and I'm sure you do, Court, letter carriers that got degrees
Hmm.
that chose, that opted to become or stay a letter carrier over pursuing the occupation in which they majored in because of the stability and the economic stability that it had as well. Not just the security, but you could put a roof over your head. You could put clothes on your back. You could put food on your table. How many carriers talk about being able to put their children through college? All of those things that were seen as extraordinary benefits for someone that could come into a job that needed not have any prior experience, needed not have a degree, and be able to have a middle class living. And now a good deal of that has been eroded away. And you have where you're talking about the Postal Service losing money and all of those other different things that very well may be true. But like I said, we can't have the Stockholm syndrome. There are ways that some of that can be offset. Part of the Postal Service's issues, in my view, is self-inflicted. When you talk about how many, perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars a year that they lose simply because they won't comply with a decision, because they won't comply or honor a grievance settlement. You know, that's ridiculous. And then you want to cry poverty with two loaves of bread under each arm? How is that the case? So we need to do a better job, us as an organization, of holding the Postal Service accountable for their own self-inflicted wounds. They said when you have across the country, just universally, they don't even make a colorful appearance to try and comply with some of these settlements now. It's just, I'm not going to do it. And it's not even just some informal A or formal A that they say, well, it's not precedent setting, you know. So I know you think I should give you this extra $50 or I should do XYZ. We're talking about step B decision where it's codified in there that it is precedent setting, inherently precedent setting for the installation in which the decision was rose. We're talking about arbitration decisions that they just give the middle finger to, from not only not making the back pay to sometimes, and it's not uncommon, but they just say, you know what? The arbitrator said, bring this person back to work. The notice of removal is rescinded. Well, I don't really like that person, so I'm not going to bring them back. I know I may ultimately be required to bring them back, but guess what? Not only did I run the bus over them, I'm going to throw it in reverse and bag it up as well. And we say, well, that's just the course of doing business. That's just the course of doing business. And we don't do, in my view, everything that we need to do. When we start talking about these settlements or, having these boilerplate language in there about that without prejudice to either party or non-precedent, and you have these settlements, particularly pre-arbitration settlements and so on, they're not worth the paper they're written on. Because then you have this contractual Groundhog Day where you continuously reliving the same violation over and over, Corey, because they feel that they don't have to comply. So that comes into play even now. How many times that it was placed that we were talking about Customer Connect, about how the NLC had gotten, and letter carriers had gotten behind the Postal Service and was helping generate all kinds of revenue for the Postal Service. All kinds of things that were happening. And now, when it's time to reward the letter carriers, we don't want to do it. Not only we're not want to do it, we're not going to do it. But yet you can find all the monies that you need to build these S&DCs. You can find all that. You say, well, it'll come out on the back end, whatever. Or find all this money to pay who you want to pay, or to give raises to whoever you want to give to. The letter carrier is the face of the Postal Service. We are the lifeblood of the Postal Service. Let's not get it twisted. As of right now, letter carriers are what keeps this engine moving. We're the fuel to this engine in this organization, in this company. And we need and deserve to be treated better and to be treated right. Not just better, but to be treated right. You get where I'm coming from, my brother? To be treated right. And I cannot tell you how much it miffs me for us to have to try and convince our own of that. Why aren't we all on the same accord with that? From the alternate steward on the workroom floor to up at my level. We all should be on one accord. It's just mind-boggling to me. So with that being said, man, like I said here, let's pray and that we continue to do what we got to do, meaning that continues, that letter carriers continue to stay active, stay engaged, hold the leadership at both NALC and the Postal Service accountable for making sure that they have a living wage and a good work environment and work rules that are consistent with longevity and consistent with a work environment that will make you proud to come to work and want to come to work every day.
I got you, my brother. Well, man, that 15 minutes turned into something, didn't it?
Man, see what happens when
You do that to me every time, though.
Man,
At least it was 7 o'clock and not 11 o'clock.
absolutely, brother. Hey man, it's always good chopping it up with you, man. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on here.
Anytime, man.
Be able to address the carrier. You and I are one of the same in regards to our love for the letter carriers.
Yes.
And like I said here, I will not stand by and be disrespected or allow anyone else to be disrespected that genuinely have the love for the letter carriers, just simply because you may disagree. Right? This is a democratic union. And democracy ain't just when you agree with it.
Right.
And the other thing is we certainly will not bow down to any fear mongering for any reason.
We didn't.
Man, you can miss me with that one. You can definitely miss me with that one. Hey, my brother, you be blessed.
All right, James.
Do your thing, all right?
All right. Love you, my man. I'll talk to you later. All right, brother?
For sure, man. Take care now.
Thanks, man. Bye.